we're going to the Chapel of Unrest. Don't despair, just gather where the people are the best.
The Commoners Choir has visited Rockaway for 2 memorable performances, and they've also recorded a song inspired by and about Rockaway's Chapel of Unrest. The choir is the brainchild of Boff Whalley, a former member of chart-topping Tub Thumpers Chumbawamba. I spoke to Boff in December 2023, and this is what we said.
I noticed that you wrote a musical drama. Could you say something about it?
Well, one thing that kind of links it into, the past and Rockaway and all that sort of stuff is that when we started being Chumbawamba, 1982, we weren't just informed by the usual suspects, by the Pistols and Crass and stuff. One thing that a couple of us, 2 or 3 of us, had grown up on was, like films like West Side Story, and even as kids, Oliver and stuff like that. And I'd never seen any of it live, but just that idea of using music to tell stories. And
Right.
So when I finally got to go and see some theatre as a kid, even pre-punk, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. And I had this conversation with Penny recently, actually, Penny Rimbaud, the other day, where I said, when I first saw Crass, my first thought was, I was like 17 or 18. My first thought was, it's theatre. It wasn't like any other rock and roll band I'd ever seen. It wasn't like Pink Floyd with sets and costumes and stuff like that. It was like the theatre was in the kind of, this is how we present an idea that's stark and bleak and important. And I just thought that was incredible, the way they looked and the way they punctuated the songs, the way they stepped off stage frontwards rather than disappearing into a dressing room. I just thought this is all theatre, and it's the stuff that I love. I loved all that.
Brother.
So then when Chumbers was kind of trolling along in the late 90s and kind of coming to an end at some point, I started writing drama for things and just really enjoyed it. And then I thought, oh, well, I'm a musician as well. I should make musical theatre. But the whole point was to do it without any of that jazz hands, Andrew Lloyd Webber crap.
So have you written other plays since that, or?
Yeah, I've written loads now. I've written quite a few kind of touring theatre things. Things are like static things that run for 6 weeks or something somewhere, and some are just little shows that just trog around the country in the back of a van, Alice was writing theatre as well for a while. So.
It seems like a few of you have gone into theatre. Dunstan's done his film and he did his show.
Yeah.
Alice writes TV, doesn't she? And I think Harry's in a theatre group.
Yeah, he's done that, yeah. I'd say there was a thing right at the beginning where, when we first started being a band, where we came to the conclusion that when people walk away from seeing bands, they go, you go, wow, that was amazing. What a fantastic gig. How weird that the singer had those, took his trousers off.
Yeah.
You remember the visual things. That's what we decided. Yeah. And so we started introducing all these visual things like we had, and we became known for a little while. We played with, I think it was with the Astronauts somewhere in Sheffield, and someone came up to us and said, oh, I've heard about you. You're that band with the telly on their heads. Because there was a song where someone put a kind of little fake TV on there. Yeah. And I just thought, well, that's great. They found a way of remembering who we were.
Poison Girls were a bit like that. Although they didn't do any theatre, they just seemed from that world, That's...
Yeah.
I denounce the system that murders my children. I denounce the system that denies my existence.
They could drop into like different kinds of music quite easily and pull it off, suddenly do like some a cappella thing. And
so what about your interest in choirs? Have you always had that?
No, I haven't always had that. I was brought up in a Mormon household. We had vinyl records of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing "Nearer Thy God to Thee" and "Put your shoulder to the wheel, push along." All just, religious. Mormon Tabernacle Choir, there's about 70 or 80, 100 of them or something. And so at some point about 6-7 years ago, I was thinking, what would be a really interesting thing to do, you know, in terms of like mixing things that shouldn't really be mixed musically? Because I've been doing some stuff in Huddersfield with Indian musicians and stuff like that, and folk song. And I just thought, wouldn't it be great if you could mix the Mormon Tabernacle Choir with Crass to have a kind of choir that can sing nicely, you know, with 4-part harmonies, but sing that level of anger and just, you know, knowledge about what's going on in the world. And so I just put a thing on social media, on Facebook or something, I can't remember, just saying, I've had this idea and I've written a manifesto for it, and this is what kind of choir it will be. It doesn't exist yet, but if anybody wants to meet up with me and see if it's even possible that we could do it, then come along. And I think about 12 people turned up, 10 or 12 people, mostly friends, obviously. We just sang something as an idea. I'd never ever done that before, ever. I'd never waved my arms around in front of people and stuff, and just thought, oh, this is all right. We can do this.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going for a bit. And then it just kind of grew and grew.
Do you do the vocal arrangements?
Yeah. Everybody in the choir who wants to contributes to what we sing about and contributes, you know, bits of lyrics here and there and ideas for songs and all that sort of thing. But in the end, I put the arrangements together, yeah. And then I go in and everyone goes, oh, we don't like this bit. What about if it went like this instead? And we try it and go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. They just carry on changing, which is great.
Which is a bit like groups, really, isn't it? You go to the song and they say, well, what about if you put this in? Are you kind of a trained musician?
Not at all. I'm absolutely not a musician in any trained sense.
So I've
never had any lesson on anything.
With the sort of 4-part harmonies, then you just sing them to the others, or?
I've just learnt them as I've grown up.
Right.
When we used to do them in Chumbers, we used to before bands and stuff, before punk bands. My dad, I got this new dad who came along, and he had a little record collection, and I think there were about 5 records in it that I really liked. One of them was the Beatles' Rubber Soul, and on Rubber Soul it was stereo. So if you pan it to one side, you get all the band playing, you get drums and bass and guitars, and if you pan it to the other side, you get just the vocals.
Yeah.
And that fascinated me.
She told me she worked in the morning and started to laugh. I told her I didn't and crawled up to sleep in the bath.
We didn't have headphones, but we had a stereo, one of those cabinet things.
Yeah, radiogram.
Yeah, and I could lie with my head in between the speakers and pan it all to the vocal side, and I would go through the entire album, both sides, just kind of singing along, and it just got in there, just this idea of how harmonies work. Because sometimes you'd just be one voice, and then you'd think, all right, there's another voice coming in now, and then you'd think, whoa, there's 3. There's 3 going at once.
Yeah.
And they're all singing something different. And when we were doing Chumbers, we used to do like warm up in the warm up before we went on stage, and we just sing something like a cappella, some old song or something, I don't know. And we just really enjoyed it. And we just thought, this is great, singing a cappella stuff. Let's do more of it.
With the Commoners Choir, what sort of places are you playing? Are you playing sort of like political events or union events or festivals?
Yeah, all those. What we said, one of the things in this kind of manifesto that was written before we were actually a choir was we'll play in unusual places. The very first sing that we did, I wouldn't call it a concert, but the first time we sang was up on the top of Kinder Scout in the Peak District, because they had a celebration of the mass trespass, and we just went up to the top of the hill and sang to the valleys, and we only had I think we had 3 songs then. We were just determined to sing in places that maybe most people don't go and sing in. So yeah, we've sung all over, and we do normal gigs, and we do anything that looks interesting.
Are you playing a lot?
We have been. We're on a bit of a break at the moment because we've got a couple of really big projects coming up next year that we're trying to learn new stuff for. We're going up to Jura, the island of Jura off the coast of Scotland for it's the 75th anniversary of George Orwell writing in 1984, and it's also the 30th anniversary of K Foundation burning £1 million, both on the island of Jura. So we're going to go up there with about 60 of us and sing a special song that we're writing about KLF and George Orwell, basically.
When Chumbawamba was coming to the end, I mean, why did that come to an end?
we're kind of running out of steam. I remember we had a meeting once where we were thinking, you know, are we just going to carry on going around playing small venues forever and just be happy with that, or is there another way of doing this? And at that meeting, because we didn't know what we were going to do, we knew we all wanted to kind of, you know, stay together as friends. But Harry and Dunst kind of said it'd be good to have a break. I remember them both saying it'd be good to have a break because Harry was doing DJing and Dunstan, I think, had moved to Brighton by then. I can't remember. And so we said, well, okay, let's have a break. And in that break, we decided to do some kind of a cappella stuff in small folk clubs. That was the some of the people that were left. And then we did that for 2 or 3 years and then just said, why don't we just kind of say a date and then stop and just really enjoy it until then. And then we did a final date with like everybody from Chumbas all turned up and we all did a big thing at the end. And it was a really nice thing because it was like, okay, we've all agreed that we haven't fallen out, but this kind of thing's gone on long enough. Let's stop now. And then we can always say we've really enjoyed it. And that's what we did.
I think the tub thumping thing, obviously it was massive all over the world, but it seemed to be particularly huge in America.
I get knocked down. I get knocked down again. You're never gonna knock me down.
Whoa, party house.
When you were touring in America, what were the shows like then? Because presumably tub thumping was bringing in a completely different set of people to people who were kind of aware of what you did, your history, and, you know, your ideas. How was that?
Yeah, because we'd played in the States a few times before that, and we had a very political audience. Not like we had in Britain. In Britain, we had a kind of, because we had some earlier songs that kind of crossed over into the protesting students type thing. So we were playing like university places, singing things, you know, playing with Credit to the Nation and singing Enough Is Enough.
Sort of Billy Bragg type of audience.
Yeah. And so then when we went to America, it was very different. It was very kind of hardcore political people. So when tub thumping happened, we just got this bizarre mixture of the hardcore politicals, a lot of who wanted to really talk to us about why have you done this and what does it mean and you know, is it a sellout and all that. Same time we were having all these new people turning up, a lot of them, you know, really young. So it was weird. One of the good things that came out of that was that a lot of the young audience that bought the Tub Thumper album because of the song Tub Thumping, a lot of them wrote to us in the following 5-10 years saying, I didn't know anything about politics or anarchism or whatever.
Yeah.
Until my parents bought me that record when I was 9. And I jumped, and then later I kind of listened to the other songs on it and then started looking at the other stuff. And that, in retrospect, that kind of justified it to us. But at the time, it was a bit crap.
Yeah.
I loved going on American radio shows and stuff like that and just being able to piss people off and say what we wanted. But the actual gigs weren't very memorable.
I get knocked down.
You know, presumably you had this idea that you wanted to take your ideas, your message, your philosophies, whatever you want to call them, to mainstream, which, you know, then led to quite a bit of hostility. How did you feel about that kind of hostility? Presumably you would have expected people were going to say, well, they've sold out, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, we totally expected it. And in a lot of ways, I think people who liked our kind of political ideas kind of missed the point a little bit sometimes. Not all of them, obviously. Kind of missed the point sometimes because you saw, like, for instance, when Crass were kind of trying to kind of rewrite punk history by saying that, you know, the Sex Pistols were just a boy band and they didn't matter and all that sort of thing. And we were like, no, that's not true. The Pistols and the Clash, they're incredibly important. And that situation is the whole Malcolm McLaren, Jamie Reid punk thing of causing a fuss, of doing the things you're not supposed to do, of wearing the clothes you're not supposed to wear. That was still really important to us. And so we could see that the kind of musical, kind of political scene in Britain was made up of these kind of factions. And we were constantly, so like when you said earlier about making English rebel songs, we'd done a couple of albums of, you know, punky, shouty, melodic stuff. And then we sat down and go, right, we need to challenge what we're doing and we need to challenge the audience. What can we do? Let's do an album of a cappella songs.
No more chant your old rhymes about bold Robin Hood. His feats I do little admire.
And then later on, when we got into dance music, it was the same. You know, we went to America and people going, oh, they've turned into the fucking Bee Gees, you know, because we were using samples and beats. All that, we were constantly thinking, how can we upset things and not just have it all just be nice and everybody knows exactly what we like and we all sing along at the gigs. So that was partly that. And part of the argument for when we were deciding to do it was, well, this is going to piss a lot of people off. And it'd be like, yeah, that'd be funny though, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be interesting? Why don't we have a go at that? Bands like the Pistols and Malcolm McLaren and KLF were as much influences on us as, you know, as the Red Army faction or the Angry Brigade or whatever politics. Yeah, I was too young to kind of get the Beatles, but once I discovered the Beatles, I kind of, and I still do think, I think what they did was incredible in terms of being around for 8 years and changing every 2 years into a completely different band. They were never the same band for more than a couple of years. And that was always a massive influence on me, especially where, you know, in Chumbas, I'd be like, okay, we've done a couple of albums like that. We need to change and do something else because, you know, I'd seen what the Beatles had done and I'd thought that's how you deal with culture. Culture changes and you can get trapped.
I mean, the other thing that was important, I thought, in Chumbawamba was with the miners' strike and the kind of realization of class politics, because crafts, for whatever reason, seem to hate the idea of
I know
class.
Yeah. And later on, reading Steve Ignorant's book, his like autobiography, you kind of realize that wasn't the whole of Crass that were thinking that, and that Steve was always kind of like, I'm fucking working class. That's, you know, and that's how it is. That's you know, I mean, like you said, that's one of the things is that it is. I think we had our, you know, when you're talking about these, like, it's quite nice to be able to kind of create stuff in this small enclave, you know. And we all grew up with you know, our own gangs and stuff.
Yeah.
And what we got with Chumbas, we created our own little kind of, you know, communal social thing. You know, we lived communally and we did, you know, grew vegetables and everything we did together. So we had this lovely safe space. And then outside that, we would think, yeah, what can we do with this? And I think if it had just been like one or two of us, we wouldn't have been so brave in doing a lot of the things we did. But because we knew there was always like 10 or 12 of us, we're like, we can do whatever we want. You know, talking about class and everything. Obviously, that miners' strike thing was really important to us because for about 2 years between 82 and 84, we were you know, kill your parents, you know, just the classic, you know, kind of rebellion stuff, you know, and all that class thing was part of it. And then when the miners' strike happened, we suddenly thought, well, hang on, these are all people that live in communities that are just exactly the same as where we all grew up.
Yeah.
Why would I from Burnley be against the miners' strike? I've got to be involved in that. So we got involved in it quite heavily. And I remember years later, I think just in terms of thinking about class, where we did a gig at Leeds University. And it was just when we were doing stuff like Enough is Enough and quite, you know, we were getting played on the radio and stuff. So we had a big audience and we were touring Britain. And we had one of those buses, you know, with bunks in it, which for us was absolutely brilliant because it was the height of, like, you know, it felt like the height of pop star luxury. But at the same time, it actually saved us loads of money because we had 12 people sleeping on a bus instead of trying to book into places. So we played at Leeds University and we had these like old friends who were, you know, punks and stuff, who were going, what have you got that for? Oh, you know, you sell out. And I had these mates from the running club that I was part of, from Pudsey and Bramley Running Club, who were all working class lads, as it was at the time. They came to the gig and they were like, whoa, is this bus yours? we want to see it. And so I took them for, you know, a little tour on the bus, and they loved it. They were so happy for us. They were like, this is brilliant, Boff. Oh, fantastic. It's really good that you've got somewhere with your music, and how brilliant. And I thought, yeah, that's the difference, is if you're actually working class, you don't resent other people trying to do their thing, you know, and being semi-successful with it.
How do you feel about communal living now?
I love it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I've got a family. I've got 2 kids, and I'm married. I'd say our house is one of those houses where, you know, when you're a kid and you're a lot of parents' houses, you don't like going in there because they don't want you to dirty the carpet and stuff. There's always one parent's house where all the kids end up after school every day, and that's our house. That's our kind of nod to communal living at the moment.
Yeah.
Every day at 3:30, Johnny's 13 now. He'll be here with like 5, 6 of his mates, and they all just come straight in the kitchen, looking around for something to eat. I just think this is great. I loved it, communal living. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It has its pitfalls. I think the way we went into communal living was with a kind of real sense of okay, if we're going to do this, then we've got to make it work properly.
Me and you, we're going to the Chapel of Unrest. Don't despair, just
What's happening next with you then?
Yeah, I've got a couple of theatre things on next year. One's about the mine, because it's an anniversary of the miners' strike next year, and that'll be touring with Red Ladder Theatre. And I've got another one which is about it's called Sanctuary, which is about an asylum seeker seeking sanctuary in a church. And I've just various bits of things. The funny thing that I'm working on now with a couple of people in Commoners is we're doing a concert with the West Yorkshire Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, wow.
And we're doing next year is the anniversary. Is it the 50th anniversary of the formation of the Ramones? And that first album, you know, about what. So we decided that we would try and team up with the Symphony Orchestra, and we're doing a set of Ramones songs with orchestra and 60-piece choir. Just kind of arranging I Want to Be Sedated this morning. Really good fun. We just tend to kind of jump from one project to the next, and then as soon as one's nearly done, then we're like, right, what are we going to do next? That's weird, and try and think of something big and interesting. So
yeah. Okay, Boff, probably good to leave it there. This is just going to be an audio thing.
Just as well, because I look like shit.
You look like a pop star, mate.
P.S. During our goodbyes, Boff offered the following thoughts about what became of the anarcho scene. I've not included this just because it contains a flattering appraisal of my own work, but that probably did help it make the cut.
I did love the show that you did at Rockaway. I thought it was great. Whenever I see people from the kind of, you know, early mid-80s kind of anarcho punk scene or whatever that have moved on and do things in a different way, whether creatively or like Mark, you know, building a I just love it. I just think this is great. All those ideas, they went somewhere, and they didn't necessarily go into just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. So I loved it. Yeah.
Me and you, we're going to the Chapel of Unrest. Don't despair, just gather where the people are the best. Join the congregation for some love and agitation. Come gather at
That was Boff Whalley in conversation with me, Steve Lake. Check in with Rockaway Podcasts for more interesting interviewees. Hopefully see you again.